What's going on, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and boy, was I a little bit surprised. A little bit, and then not, that we got Warlock and Wizard combined in a brand new Unearthed Arcana today. So, one was something I had predicted way back at the beginning, kind of before Paladin came out, that we were going to get a Hex Blade for the Warlock. But Wizards blew my mind with what they did today, something I was not expecting. A couple of things before I jump in. This is the last of the going through systematically and doing each class by class. This is the last class-based one. Now we're kind of be rolling, I guess, into new ones. And they have a little section down here about the current Unearthed Arcana series. We have a bunch of D&D content for you to playtest, discuss them all over. This might be reciprocated on every post, and I'm only just reading it now. Multiple times. Yeah, you know what? I think this is actually the same. So, never mind on that. Okay. So, why did it blow my mind? We got two new patrons. Even though you can't really consider the Hex Blade to be a patron, either way, we got two new Warlocks, but they gave us new invocations. And oh my god, are these invocations just so good. And they make picking a certain pact or a patron that you wouldn't normally take, like the Archfey, potentially, like, don't get me wrong, roleplay wise and things, you might want to pick the Archfey, but when you look at the crunchiness of what you get, the Fiend out of the player's handbook really wins out. Also, they totally ignored everything in the Sword Coast Adventure Guide. They ignored the Undying Light in the Unearthed Arcana. They ignored the Undying one, but they did do something for the Seeker, the one Unearthed Arcana, which makes me feel like they might want to make that a permanent one. But yeah, we're gonna get into that. So let's roll in. So the Hex Blade. If this sounds familiar, you've heard me talk about it a bunch. There's been a lot of homebrew classes of this, homebrew archetypes that kind of pulled this off. This was a class from 3.5. It debuted in the, I want to say, the Player's Handbook 2. And it was Wizards at that point first foray into a base class that was martial and magic mixed. They kind of refined it a little bit more when the Dusk Blade came out much later on. But the Hex Blade, it focused around this cool ability to curse. And I guess that kind of fits with the Hex Blade Warlock, given the fact that Warlocks have access to the Hex spell. And a lot of people worked on trying to, on their homebrews, augment the Hex spell to make that part of the Hex Blade. So, you made a pact with a powerful sentient magic weapon carved from the stuff of Shadowfell. The mighty sword Black Razor is the most notable of these weapons, several of which have spread across the multiverse over the ages. Raven Queen first forged the first of these weapons. They, along with the Hexblade Warlocks, are another tool she can use to manipulate events in the material plane. So, your spell list that you get to choose from, again, just a point of fact, your DM may choose otherwise, but Warlocks, this is an expanded spell list, meaning these are additional spells they can choose from with their limited Warlock spells known, not ones that you automatically know like a domain. However, you're probably going to want to grab a lot of these because they're great. Shield, Wrathful Smite, Shield for sure, Branding Smite, the Wrathful Smite's pretty good, the psychic damage is solid, and it takes an action to break the fear. Branding Smite, Magic Weapon, you're probably not going to have a need for, assuming you go one of the routes I think you might. Blink is okay, Elemental Weapon is solid, Phantasmal Killer is decent, but your big ones come in your 5th level spells, and Cone of Cold and Destructive Wave. Destructive Wave being the big one, only accessible by Paladins and Tempest Clerics. Okay, the big crux of this class, which makes me so pumped. I want to find a game where I can play this, because Hexblade was one of my favorite characters. I had a very long history with a Hexblade character that, unfortunately, through DM discrepancy, I wasn't allowed to play anymore. A whole long story. But what do you get? Proficiency in medium armor, shields, and martial weapons. In addition, when attacking with a melee weapon that you are proficient with and that lacks the two-handed property, so no great swords or bows or mauls, unfortunately, you can use your charisma modifier instead of strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls. So you now just got yourself access to a shield, to medium armor, and the ability to basically drop your strength and roll with your packed weapon and be amazing. You also get the Hex Blades Curse at first level. As a bonus action, choose one creature you can see within 30 feet. They're cursed for a minute. While they're cursed, you get the following benefits. You gain a bonus to damage rolls equal to your proficiency bonus against that target. You crit on a 19 or 20 against that target. And if they die, you regain hit points equal to your Warlock level plus your Charisma modifier. And this is a once per short or long rest feature. So this, along with your spell slots, you get a ton back on a short rest. At 6th level, you get the Shadow Hound. This was way better in, it was a Dark Companion, I think it was called in 3.5, and it was way better then, but this is more tuned to 5e. So, most of the time, your Shadowhound masquerades as your normal shadow. As a bonus action, you can command it to magically slip into the shadow of a creature you can see within 60 feet of you. When the Shadowhound is merged in this manner, the target can't gain benefits of half cover or 3/4 cover against your attack rolls, and you know the distance and direction to the target, even if it's hidden. The Hound can't be seen by anyone but you, and those with true sight, and it is unaffected by light. The target has a vague feeling of dread while your Hound is present. As a bonus action, you can command your Shadowhound to return to you. It also automatically returns to you if you're in a target on a different plane of existence, if you're incapacitated, or if Dispel Magic or Remove Curse is activated on the target. In previous editions, the Dark Companion was awesome because it wasn't targetable by things, except for maybe a Dispel Magic or Remove Curse, and it would basically debuff. It would lower the AC and the saving throw rolls of an enemy you put it on. This is good. I guess the big benefit of this is if you're Eldritch blasting somebody within 60 feet of you, you can ignore the half and 3/4 cover, and for tracking purposes. But I feel like it kind of is lacking a little bit in my mind, the weaker of the features. But at 10th level, your Hex grows more powerful. If a target is cursed by your Hex Blades Curse, hits you with an attack roll, roll a d6. On a roll of 4 or higher, the attack instead misses you. This is a completely new mechanic as far as we've seen from official sources in 5e. Roll a d6, and on a 4 or higher, they miss. And lastly, Master of Hexes at level 14. You can use your Hex Blade Curse again without resting. When you apply it to a new target, the curse immediately ends on the previous target. So now you just have unlimited Hex, which is awesome. And we're going to get to the Invocations, which there's some really, really awesome ones for the Hex Blade. But let's jump into the Raven Queen. So, if you're not familiar with the Raven Queen, she's sort of a judge goddess. Probably, I would say, made more famous in recent years. I mean, I know she was the Shatterkai worshipped her and things like that, because they're from the Shadowfell. But Critical Role kind of brought her into prominence, I would say. That was more like a 4e Pathfinder thing that Matt Mercer kind of incorporated into his 5th edition story for Critical Role. So, it's basically, I feel like you're sort of this is the most devout Warlock we've seen, because the Raven Queen is a goddess, and I guess you're sort of entering a pact, but it also seems like you're a worshipper. And your extended spells, False Life, Sanctuary. Okay, Sanctuary has its uses, but Silence is golden. As the 2nd level spell. Spiritual Weapon, also great, because it's non-concentration. And that'll benefit from your kind of boosted spell casting. Feign Death and Speak with Dead. Speak with Dead is very thematic. Feign Death, not so much. Ice Storm, a nice AoE for you. And then 5th, Commune and Cone of Cold. So, I feel like it's a little confusing, the class features you get with this, and they're a little wonky, but the concept of it, in theory, is really cool. So, you gain the service of a raven spirit, basically, that looks like a raven, has the stats of a raven. It obeys you, and you can communicate with it. It obeys your commands, which you can give telepathically to it while it's within 100 feet. While it's perched on your shoulder, you gain dark vision up to 30 feet, and a bonus to your passive perception and perception checks, and the bonus is equal to your charisma modifier, so a lot of good synergy there. While perched on your shoulder, it can't be targeted by any attack or other harmful effects. Only you can cast spells on it, and it can't take damage, and it is incapacitated. You can see through its eyes and hear what it hears within 100 feet of you. In combat, you roll initiative for it and control how it acts. If it's slain by a creature, you gain advantage on all attack rolls against the killer for the next 24 hours. So, similar to the way the owl is used as a familiar for most wizards, where it flies in, uses the help action, and flies away, you just have it fly in, use the help action, and then hope that they kill it, because then you get advantage against all attacks on it. It doesn't require sleep. While it's within 100 feet of you, it can awaken you from sleep as a bonus action, which is great for kind of taking watches. The Raven vanishes when it dies. If you die or if the two of you are separated by more than 5 miles. At the end of a short or long rest, you can call it back to you, and it appears within 5 feet. At 6th level, as a bonus action, when the Raven is perched on your shoulder, your body merges with your Raven's form. While merged, you become tiny. You replace your speed with the Ravens. You can take the dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, or search action, and that's it. You gain the benefits of your Raven. You get all the benefits of it being perched on your shoulder. You can act as an action. You and the Raven return to normal. So it just basically kind of is a hide technique and also gives you flight. At 10, because the Raven Queen kind of manages over death, you have advantage on death saving throws, immunity to the frightened condition, and resistance to necrotic damage. Lastly, at level 14, you can cast Finger of Death. After you cast the spell with this feature, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. And that's just a freebie, not using a spell slot or a Mystic Arcanum, which is nice. Okay. So, the invocations. So good. They're just so good. I'm so excited for this. I hope these come to us in a future book so that they can be official published sources, because... Alright. We'll start at the top. Aspect of the Moon for the Archfey Patron. So this is one of the ones from the player's handbook, the kind of Fey-based one. You've gained the Maiden of the Moon's favor. You no longer lead sleep and can't be forced to sleep by any means. So that the elves say you can't be put to sleep magically, so a sleeping poison technically would still work. Not for these guys. Taking the benefits of a long rest, you can spend all hours doing activity though. So you could stay on watch all 8 hours through the night, allowing your allies to sleep all through the night, and you still get your benefits of a long rest. Again, some Hex Blade ones. So this one's prerequisite is Hex Blade. Burning Hex. As a bonus action, you can cause a target cursed by your Hex Blade Curse to take fire damage equal to your Charisma modifier. So, I mean, that's not bad, because as a Hex Blade, once you've cursed them as a bonus action, and say you slipped your Shadow Hound to them as a bonus action, that's just a way for you to bonus action get extra damage. So you're swinging with your sword, and then you're like, and also take some fire damage. Not bad. Kaifon's Beacon. This is for the Great Old One users. You gain proficiency in deception and stealth checks, and you have advantage on attack rolls against charmed creatures. Chilling Hex, another Hex Blade one. As a bonus action, you cause frost to swirl around a target cursed by your Hex Blade, or your Hex Blade's curse, dealing cold damage to each of your enemies within 5 feet of the target. The cold damage equals your Charisma modifier. So there's nothing stopping you from taking Chilling Hex and Burning Hex. Unfortunately, though, you can only activate the damage on one or the other. Chronicle of the Raven Queen. This is cool because this is one of the first ones we see where it requires 2 things. Raven Queen Patron and Pact of the Tome. After 1 minute, you place a corpse's hand or similar appendage on your Book of Shadows and ask 1 question. After 1 minute, the answer appears written in blood in your book. The answer is provided by the dead creature's spirit to the best of its knowledge and is translated into a language of your choice. You must use this ability within 1 minute of the creature's death, and a given creature can only be asked 1 question in this manner. It's very thematic to the Raven Queen, which I like, and it also is kind of a reason to not necessarily need to take Speak with Dead, because it works all the time, and it works on multiple creatures. Claw of Akamar. This is, again, one of these, there's a lot of these Blade, Pact of the Blade. So if you're a Great Old One patron and you have the Pact of the Blade, you can choose the Claw of Akamar. You create a flail. The flail's head is sculpted to resemble a pair of grasping tentacles. This weapon has the reach property, so that's a 10-foot reach on this weapon now. When you hit a creature with it, you can expend a spell slot to deal an additional 2d8 necrotic damage to the target per spell level. Now remember, you're a Warlock, so you're going to be auto-casting your spell slots, the limited slots that you do have. 2d8 per necrotic per level of the spell, and you can reduce the creature's speed to 0 until the end of your next turn. Cloak of Beelzebub for the Fiend Patron. You get swarms as a bonus action. Buzzing flies surround you. The swarm grants you advantage on intimidation checks, but disadvantage on all other charisma checks. In addition, a creature that starts its turn within 5 feet of you takes poison damage equal to your charisma modifier. You can dismiss the swarm as a bonus action. That does not distinguish between friends and enemies. Cursebringer, the Hex Blade and Pact of the Blade feature. You create a great sword, so here's how you get your two-handed weapon. You can create a great sword forged from silver with black runes etched into its blade using your Pact of the Blade feature. If you reduce a target cursed by your Hex Blades Curse to 0 hit points with this sword, you can immediately change the target of the curse to a different creature. This change does not extend the curse's duration, so this sort of makes it function like a hex. It's sort of replaceable when you hit level 14 and can just hex permanently, but you also get this feature. When you hit a creature with this weapon, you can choose expend a spell slot to deal an additional 2d8 slashing damage to the target per spell level, and you can reduce the creature's speed to 0 feet until the end of your next turn. Kiss of Mephistopheles. This requires 5th level Fiend Patron and Eldritch Blast cantrip. When you hit a creature with your Eldritch Blast, you can cast Fireball as a bonus action using a Warlock spell slot. However, the spell must be centered on a creature you hit with Eldritch Blast. I mean, talk about how crazy this one is. So you get Fireball as, I believe you get Fireball as a Fiend Patron Warlock. However, this is giving you bonus action Fireball after Eldritch Blast. If you take Repelling Blast, where you knock people back 10 feet, you can also use this to knock, if you have multiple blasts, mind you, to knock someone back 10 feet, position them closer to the enemies you want to hit, then hit them with the second blast, and then set the Fireball off as a bonus action and hit them all. It's so good. Frost Lance. This is for the Archfey patrons and the Eldritch Blast cantrip. When you hit a creature with Eldritch Blast 1 or more times on your turn, you can reduce that creature's speed by 10 feet until the end of your next turn. So this basically gives you Eldritch Blast Ray of Frost combo. Ray of Frost only has a 60-foot range, doesn't add your charisma modifier to the damage normally. 60-foot range, only does a d8 damage, and it does reduces the enemy's speed until the end of their next turn, or end of your next turn, or whatever it is, by 10 feet. So this combines the two. Again, another great reason to want to potentially go Archfey Patron. Aspect of the Moon is more... I'd say that's more for RP and less combat effective, but Frostlance is great. Gaze of Kirad for the Great Old One at level 7. As an action, you can see through solid objects to a range of 30 feet until the end of the current turn. During that time, you perceive objects as ghostly transparent images. I believe this may be one of the few ways without the use of a scrying spell to see through walls. So that's pretty neat. Grasp of Hadar, a spell, Hadar we see a couple times for the Warlocks, Arms of Hadar and Hunger of Hadar. So Great Old One and then the Eldritch Blast, so these kind of all have an Eldritch Blast based feature. When you hit a creature with your Eldritch Blast, you can move the creature in a straight line 10 feet towards you, rather than Repelling Blast, which knocks them back 10 feet. The Green Lord's Gift, another option, again, a great reason to take the Archfey. Your soul is linked to the Green Lord. Whenever you regain hit points, you treat any dice roll to determine the hit points you regain as having rolled their maximum value. I mean, just how good is that? Like, again, Archfey, not one that I would really just jump at wanting to take over some of the other options out there, but this just gives you... It's just so good. I don't know. You're healed when people heal you, or you heal yourself. I mean, even drinking a healing potion, you heal max on the healing potions. Awesome. Especially if you can get yourself some sort of weapon or magic item that will get you healing. Its healing is max. Improved pack weapon. This, I think, was greatly needed, and I'm surprised it took this long to make it. 5th level, and the Pact of the Blade feature, when you create your packed weapon, it is now +1 weapon. Part of the thing about making your packed weapon up front was it was magic. That was one of the big benefits of it. Now it's a +1. And remember, anytime you gain a level, you can swap out invocations. So, or maybe it's anytime you would learn a new invocation, you can swap out an old one. But either way, if you find a badass weapon, you don't need to use this, you can swap it out. Mace of Dissipater, this is for Fiend Patrons with Pact of the Blade. When you hit a creature with a mace created from this, you can expend a spell slot to deal an extra 2d8 force damage to the target of the spell, and you can knock the target prone if it is huge or smaller. There is no save to knock that creature prone, and it is huge or smaller to knock it prone, and it's force damage, so it's almost never going to be resisted. Moonbow, the Archfey Patron and Pact of the Blade. You create a longbow. When you draw back its string and fire, it creates an arrow of white wood, which vanishes after a minute, so you don't need to ever have arrows. You have advantage on attack rolls against lycanthropes with this bow, and when you hit a creature, you can expend a spell slot to deal an additional 2d8 radiant damage to the target per spell level. Radiant damage is yet another damage type that is almost never resisted. Path of the Seeker. This is the Seeker Patron. This is from one of the previous Unearthed Arcana articles that came out. You ignore difficult terrain, have advantage on all checks to escape a grapple, manacles, or rope bindings, and have advantage on saving throws against being paralyzed. Ignoring difficult terrain is great, and advantage on saving throws against paralyzed is huge. Advantage on the checks, I mean, even to escape grapple could be very good depending on a lot of the creatures that have grapple also restrain, so having advantage on it's pretty great. Raven's Queen Blessing. This is the Raven Queen and the Eldritch Blast combined together. When you score a critical hit with your Eldritch Blast, pick yourself or an ally you can see within 30 feet of you. The chosen creature can immediately expend a hit die to regain hit points equal to the roll of the hit die, plus the creature's Constitution modifier. Relentless Hex for the Hex Blade. As a bonus action, you can magically teleport to a space you can see within 5 feet of the target cursed by your Hex Blades Curse. To do so, you must be able to see the target and must be within 30 feet. So this is sort of a free, always on while someone is cursed, bonus action Misty Step. I mean, Misty Step is a bonus action, but a Misty Step for you to get you closer so you can swing at the target of your curse. Sea Twin's Gift. You can breathe underwater. You gain a swim speed equal to your walk speed. You can cast water breathing using a Warlock slot. Once you do so, you can't do it again until you finish a long rest. Seeker's Speech. This is again for the Seeker Patron. When you complete a long rest, pick 2 languages. You can the ability to speak, read, and write those languages until you finish your next long rest. Shroud of Alban. As an action, this is Great Old One, level 18. This is a higher level one. As an action, you can turn invisible for 1 minute. If you attack, deal damage, or force a creature to make a saving throw, you become visible at the end of the current turn. Couple of reasons why. At first, I was like, this is kind of stupid. It's an 18th level invisibility. It's free. It doesn't have a limit on how often you can do it. It's not once per long rest. It's not once per short rest. You can just do this as an action. You're invisible for a minute. It's non-concentration. And you only drop it if you attack, deal damage, or force a creature to make a saving throw. So moving, healing, things like that, those don't require you to drop your invisibility. So you could basically, you're probably not going to be a healer if you're an 18th level Warlock, but I mean, walking around and pouring potions down your wounded allies' throats is something you could easily do without breaking invisibility. Or if you have proficiency in lockpicks, picking a lock doesn't break your concentration, doesn't turn you visible. You can just do that. And then again, after a minute, you can just do it again. 9th level Superior Pact Blade. This makes it a +2 weapon. You have to be 9th level. And then we've got Tomb of Levistus. I love this one. I think this is a really unique concept. I think it's pretty cool. As a reaction, when you take damage, you entomb yourself in ice, which melts away at the end of your next turn. You gain 10 temporary hit points per Warlock level, which take as much of the triggering damage as possible. So you get hit with a fireball for 30 damage. Your reaction, encase yourself in ice. You're, say, a 10th level Warlock. You get 100 temporary hit points. That damage gets soaked up in those temporary hit points. But you're also vulnerable to fire, so whatever the damage you took will be doubled. Your speed drops to 0 and you're incapacitated. All of these effects end when the ice melts. Once you use this invocation, you can't use it until you finish a short or long rest. As a reaction to damage, at the end of your turn, it melts away. So you could potentially get hit, encase yourself in ice, then it's your turn. You can heal or do whatever you want to do while you're in the ice. Actually, you can't because you're incapacitated. But then at the end of the turn, you're not. It's just a kind of a... definitely an oh shit panic button. And it's when you take damage and the temporary hit points is over. So if you fall from a great height and you're about to hit the ground, you encase yourself in ice as soon as you hit the ground. And the damage you took is absorbed in the temporary hit points. So... And lastly, the ultimate Pact weapon. At 15th level with Pact of the Blade, you get your Pact weapon is a +3 weapon. This is super solid. These 3 Pact weapons are very good if you can't find yourself getting a magic item or a magic weapon. If you're really hurting for attunement slots and you just want something that's more powerful, you want to have a +3 weapon. And the best part is they're not, I didn't realize this till now, they're not cumulative. Once you hit level 9, you can drop improved Pact weapon. You don't need to have one to have the other. And once you hit 15, you can drop superior Pact weapon, and then you have a +3 weapon, and you got basically 2 attunements back as you went through. Very cool. And then, I mean, yes, you could find a great magic weapon, and that might be the magic weapon you attune to, which is fine. But if not, you have this as an option. So I really like this. I really want to play a Hex Blade. I think I'd have a really good time with that. But again, some of these other ones, there's a lot of cool thematic stuff for the Archfey, the Fiend, and the Undying. I'm surprised they just forgot, they just didn't care about the Undying one from the Sword Coast Adventure Guide. That is a published one you can play as, anyone can play as. And they're just like, nah, never mind, you don't get that. Oh well. What did suck is the Seeker and the Hexblade didn't get an Eldritch Blast modifier. I think it makes sense for the Hexblade, considering they're probably going to be focused primarily on melee. But why not the Seeker? And then again, they also gave nothing for the Undying Light Warlock from another earlier, the Underdark-themed Unearthed Arcana. Lastly, we have one new arcane tradition for the wizard, that is Lore Mastery. So, this one is pretty interesting. You get a lot of stuff. I feel like it might be almost a little kind of on the OP side. So, at 2nd level, your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses Arcana, History, Nature, or Religion if you're proficient in the skill. In addition, your analytical abilities are so well honed, basically you can use Intelligence instead of Dexterity when you roll Initiative. 2nd level, this is kind of where I start to feel like I feel like you can use both in tandem. When you cast a spell with a spell slot that deals Acid, Cold, Fire, Force, Lightning, Necrotic, Radiant, or Thunder damage, you can substitute that damage with one other type from that list. You can only change only one damage type per casting of the spell. You replace one energy type for another by altering the spell's formula as you cast it. When you cast a spell with a spell slot and that spell requires a saving throw, you can change the saving throw from one ability score to another of your choice. Once you gain a saving throw in this way, or once you change a saving throw in this way, you can't do so until you finish a short or long rest. I don't understand, and I don't see there's any way for you to not do both in one. The changing of the saving throw is short or long rest, but the other one is whenever you cast a spell. So, I mean, you could easily switch a really high damaging spell or a really, like, powerful saving throw spell on a weak creature to be a strength save, like a strength save fireball, or an intelligence save fireball. And I don't see anything saying that you couldn't do both at the same time. There's a little blurb here about trying to describe the way these spells are enacted. Like a charmed person requires on Constitution might take the form of vaporous narcotic that alters the target's mood, or a strength save fireball might be spheres of burning rock hitting them, so you need to block them with your strength. Alchemical Casting is 6th level. When you cast a spell with a spell slot, you can expend an additional slot to augment the effect and add more, additional abilities to it. If the additional spell you spend is a 1st level slot, you can increase the spell's raw damage. If you roll the damage for the spell, increase the damage against every target by 2d10 force damage. If it does damage over one turn, it only deals the force damage on the first turn when it's cast. If it's a 2nd level spell, the slot spell's range increases. If this spell's range is at least 30 feet, it becomes 1 mile. I have a really just fun theory about this and just magic missile, which unerringly hits out to 1 mile. Hey, remember that guy we saw a mile back? The missiles go and they hit the guy. I thought that was kind of weird. And then at 3rd level, additional 3rd level slot or above, you increase the spell save's DC by 2. Pretty potent stuff. At 10th level, this is huge. As a bonus action, you can replace one spell you have prepared with another from your spell book. You can't use this feature again until you finish a short or long rest. This is really good, especially gives you an additional reason to want to spend money and find scrolls and spell books and copy all that stuff into your spell book, because this lets you go ahead and just basically swap one out if you need like a specific spell on that day. And then Master of Magic is almost too powerful. As a bonus action, you can call to mind the ability to cast one spell of your choice from any class's spell list. The spell must be of a level for which you have slots, you mustn't have it prepared, and you follow the normal rules for casting it, including expending a spell slot. If the spell isn't a wizard spell, it counts as a wizard spell when you cast it. The ability to cast the spell vanishes from your mind when you cast it or when the current turn ends. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. So, I mean, you're a wizard, one of your companions dies. You're like, man, I really wish I knew Revivify. Oh wait, I do. Boop, Revivify. You know, oh man, our barbarian is really hurt and he could use some help. Well, oh, I'll cast heal. There you go. And I cast heal on the barbarian. That kind of thing. Like, there's crazy stuff, and this is a bonus action to draw the spell, and that means you can still cast a spell with an action that, that uses an action to cast. Crazy good. And again, that's at level 14. I mean, I don't know, but I feel like there'd be a lot of situations where, as a wizard, where you still have a massive amount of spells, where you'd be in that scenario, be like, man, I really wish we had someone who would cast this spell. Oh wait, I'll just do it. And then you do. I don't know, guys. This is one of the longest Unearthed Arcana reviews I've done so far, but the Warlock stuff just blew me away. I've never, fun fact, never played a Warlock in 5e, really. Nothing consistent. I played a Warlock in like a really wonky one-shot one time. But like, I've wanted to play a Warlock a lot. But I always felt like I might get bored and there wasn't enough. But these invocations and the fact that Hex Blade exists just reinvigorates my want to play it. So, let me know what you guys think. I mean, I was not expecting a whole list of new invocations. That blew my mind. And again, it made me want to play the Archfey for the cool bow and the max healing, or any of the really cool things that the Great Old One could do. Just really neat stuff. So, let me know what you guys think about these new invocations and the new Warlock patrons and the one new Wizard Arcane Tradition. Are you guys going to be playing these? Do you think they're great? Are you sad that we didn't see anything else specifically? And what do you think we'll see for the future of Unearthed Arcana now that we've kind of gone through every single class? Will they go back to the psionics and kind of update those? I don't know. I guess we'll see. Hey guys, hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you next time.